You just saved a bunch of water. And now instead of 323 gallons per day, you're down to 300. There's all kinds of options like that you can do. Simple things. Net zero, let's talk about what that is in general. It's a creation. It's this way to help people and companies and politicians think about how we use energy, how we balance that out, and how we account for our energy footprints on the water side too. So account is the key word because think of it as a big spreadsheet. I've been selling solar since 1999, so 25 years of doing this. And when we were first pushing this stuff out there, we'd go to companies and they'd go, well, why do I want to do this? And we'd say, because it's better. And they'd say, how much better? And so we came up with a way to compare. We said, with as much energy as you use, and if you put this up on your roof and it's this size, you might offset 25% of your energy. And so we started using those words, but it was just a guidance because solar is, we call it an intermittent resource. By the time we've had this conversation, the production has gone up and down 100 times. You just don't know. You're trying to estimate its performance into the future. You're also plugging into the electrical grid that also has an energy mix that constantly changes by the second. There's a lot of variables that go into the actual benefits that you get out of it. But in general, we said these are the things that you can offset it. So that's how it started. And then what ended up happening is the world just took that and put it on steroids. And now everything is an offset and everything is avoided emissions. And it just turned into this big amorphous mess. But that's not to say that it's you making your house energy cleaner. If you put solar on your roof, does it make it better? Sure. Yes. You're using less dirtier energy. And so that's a good thing. If you have an EV and it prevents you from driving the same amount of miles with a gas car, then get it. And if you can afford it, fantastic. No reason not to do that. If you can change your work schedules where you can work at home for 2 days a week, guess what? You just cut your commuting footprint down by 40%, right? Because you don't have to drive 5 days a week. Simple things. You can carpool to take your kids to and from sports. But then there's a bunch of esoteric stuff where there's these exchanges and these markets. You can literally buy shares of farms who have planted trees on their farms to absorb and hold carbon for a period of time. There's actually markets for that. They're called silvopastures, as a very technical term, but it's basically think of farms as big carbon sponges, and you can buy shares of them, which are great things to do. Think about it's a win-win because the farmers get to hold on to their land, maintain integrity. They get to plot the crops that make the most sense. And they also get subsidized for having trees that will hold on to carbon. There's all kinds of options like that you can do. I know some of those are more esoteric than others, but maybe you live in an apartment and you can't install solar on your roof. But hey, there's a big, huge solar system down the street that's owned by the community. You can buy a share of that. It doesn't help this much, but it helps this much. And you can slowly make systemic changes to make things incrementally better. There is such a thing as climate morality nowadays. It used to be just people screaming in the streets and we would shuffle them off to the side and say, what the heck are these people talking about? But now with the climate, we've created this whole culture. I live here in California, and so we're in the middle of it. And probably a lot of it came from us. I come from the climate industry. You're required to say certain things and you're required to not say certain things. And if you do, man, you will hear about it from a lot of people. And there's a whole culture that's associated with this now. Teslas, fantastic vehicles, but they're not for the poor. They're for the rich, and they're expensive. And we're using lots and lots and lots of public money to fund rich people's cars. And when you look at the math, they're actually making the problem worse. They're adding CO2. Sorry, they just are. And that's just a physical fact. When I point that out, people scream because no, Teslas have to be part of the answer. Physics doesn't lie. It is what it is. And so there's this whole new weird morality about it. And I'll make it extreme again. 70,000 people flew to Dubai in November to celebrate their climate morality. They burned countless tons of fuel to go to the most fuel-rich country in the history of the world to celebrate how we should all get rid of burning fuel. And they're celebrating. They're saying, didn't we make fantastic progress? And I'm thinking, no. I stayed home, and that means I don't have to plant 25 trees to offset my one trip. It's really this weird morality where you're allowed to do bad things as long as you say good things. And I don't understand that. The climate is the only master here. And if you're flying, sorry, unless you're planting trees and holding onto those trees, you're making things worse. That's just the physics of it. I view the morality of it is no one cares what I think. No one cares what you think. They don't care if you think I'm higher morals than you when it comes to the climate, because I've been working in this industry, and then I go out and I drive my Camaro 100 miles an hour and fill it up every 3 miles. Here's another example. The cleanest form of energy we have is nuclear, by far. How often do you hear that in climate discussion? I live 10 miles from a nuclear plant here in California, so they're getting ready to close it down until finally a bunch of people said, really? What's the plan for providing the energy? We're going to do solar and storage, and then we go, you're going to increase the CO2 footprint of that capacity by 400%. We're going the wrong way. It goes back to this climate morality, and it's a creation that we've come up with. I would offer also that it's being used to really divide us in a lot of ways. You very rarely have a conversation about the climate that brings us together. It's normally, are you a good guy or are you a bad guy? As if there is such a thing in the climate world. We're all using fossil fuels. I don't know one person that isn't. Fossil fuels has powered every single step of our lives for our entire lives. There's no getting around that. How could you be more moral, or how can I be more moral than you if we're both using the same stuff? Really? I don't know anybody who just says, you know what, let's just go out and trash the planet. Let's just go ruin stuff. No one says that. People love to hate on oil companies, and they say, if we just shut them down, then all of this goes away. And I think if you shut them down, we're back to living in caves. What good does that do? We're using this stuff. It's not like Exxon just uses up all this oil themselves. They provide stuff, and then we all use it, and we build our lives around it. So these are facts. So when I think about morality and the things that you can do and how to feel better about this, what are the unifiers is we actually all want to do better. We really do. And I think that's just a great starting point. We want to do better. The challenge is what's better? What's better for me is maybe not better for you. And what I think about it is different than you. I look at it and I go, I don't necessarily think an EV is better. I think me not driving any car is better. And I'd rather do that and work from home for 2 days a week if I'm allowed to do it, and all of my emissions go down and I save money. Lots of good things happen. As much as I hate to say this statistic, but the best thing that happened for the climate in the past 40 years was COVID. And if you look at the emissions are going like this 2020, they just went boom. 1 year. 1 year, in 11 months, we dropped our emissions by, I think it's 11% here in the country. 11%, when over the past 40 years, they've been growing. That tells you that maybe just turning off a light now and then actually has some power to it. Now, no one's going to advocate, let's just have the government control everything and shut everything down like they did. But the point is, we can actually have an effect. And so this idea that we have to demonize a bunch of people to make this happen is really not true. We're all using the same stuff. We're all making better choices if we can. So I can't fault someone for not being able to afford a $75,000 Tesla. Maybe they can't even put food on their table. Or you go into inner cities and what are they going to do? How is that going to work? And so making comparatively better choices continually, I think is always a good thing. One of the things that we decided to do with Liquid8 was, number one, transparency and the truth. I always tell people, if you're concerned about the climate, what's the truth? Find the truth and commit to it. And it's hard because if you have a set of beliefs and you have to get into the data and you look at some of the numbers, it'll challenge your beliefs, and you have to be willing and open to accept that. So I always start there. Let's tell the truth. Let's produce the data. Let's tell the truth. And so what we do on the water side with Liquid8 is we have monitoring systems that we deploy out there. We say, here's how much water you're using. And so in the residential side, water is really interesting because not only do you not know how much water you're using, the utility doesn't even count in gallons. The water measurement system comes from the agriculture community, and their measurement is something they call an acre foot. So it's an acre of land with water a foot deep. And it just so happens that an acre foot equals 748 gallons, okay? And the utility calls that 1 unit. When you get your utility bill, you've used 4 units. And you have no idea how many gallons you've used. And if you want to call your utility, you can. Good luck. You actually have to argue with them to get that information. And you can't do it consistently. Start with the truth. The monitoring system says, hey, we don't speak units. You used 323 gallons yesterday. Wow, I didn't know that. And then you can see whether or not there were leaks. You can see your usage patterns. You can start making behavioral changes. What happens a lot of times is people realize, why do I have water on at 2 in the morning? And you realize, oh, because my Labrador chewed up my sprinkler system in the backyard and it's leaking. So you repair that. Hey, guess what? You just saved a bunch of water. And so now instead of 323 gallons per day, you're down to 300. And so then you say, maybe I should replace the shower head in my shower and I'll save an extra 10 gallons a day. And you can start making systemic changes like that. And it totally makes a big difference. And if you're just open and honest about it and you're pragmatic, you can actually make a big dent in these things. If you're a sustainability director struggling to meet your water goals, please contact me directly at mcortez@liquid8water.com. I'd love to talk with you about it.